We spend about $1 million a year on these events and support for our employees. At the end of the day, it differentiates how they act towards the client when we send them out, right? They come back, they have a sense of pride of working where they are. They want to deliver an experience that's unique and different, and they want to, do what our vision is, which is to wow and amaze our clients.
Everybody, and welcome to our Service with a Smile luxury ownership experience. We're with a great crew here who's going to be going through. We have our builder representation, cybersecurity, we have 2 integrators, and we're going to just talk a little bit about the luxury experience is really the experience after things are built, and what are we doing as a team to make sure that all of their needs are being met, that things are working throughout the course of their home, while they're living in their home, and the resources that they have and how important they are in the partnerships that we're building with them. And it's not just transactional, it really is the relationship that we're building and the trust. So we're gonna go from there. But in the meantime, I wanna introduce everybody who's on the panel, and I'm gonna start, actually we'll go with Paul.
Hi everybody, I'm Paul Biava. I'm the owner and president of ETC. We're based in Palm Beach, Florida. I bought the business about 7 years ago from the original owner, so I'm kind of new to the industry a little bit, although 7 years now, I guess I'm an old guy hack. Just excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me, and look forward to chatting with you guys about the service.
Yeah, I'm Kevin Roach. I'm with Bravas. I run our signature residences team. Bravas is a national integrator. We span from the Bay Area of San Francisco through Boca Raton, kind of everywhere in between. And love being a part of this panel. Very excited to share some conversation around service with a smile.
Hey, Ted.
Hi, I'm Ted Bremekamp. I'm with a company called SpecOp Secure. We specialize in cybersecurity, RMR for the integrator. I come from a background of almost 40 years in this industry. I was an integrator. I ran a technical support company for integrators for 5 years, and now just recently started SpecOp and trying to get cybersecurity into the integration market.
I am Jim Schneider from Schneider Construction. We are in Cape Charles, Virginia. So we're a small design build firm. Typical client comes to us after buying some cool piece of property and says, what do we do now? It's kind of our niche. I'm the color commentator here to kind of create a little glue with this panel to kind of give the connection to the client from a builder's perspective.
And I'm Pavia. I work for Kenneth, Vona in Sun Construction. Prior to that, I worked for about 6 years for an integrator. So I know a little bit on both sides, and I'm here to help facilitate this and ask the right questions so we all learn today about some good customer service. I'm going to start though. Jim, you're going to show some of your projects and what's been involved.
Sure. So again, we're design build, so we do all kinds of neat stuff. This happens to be an aerial view of a project we did, had some solar. And really the purpose of my photos are really just going to be for me to be able to talk about the process of how we do what we do. Okay, so as a custom builder, you guys are, you go through this all the time. We get a set of plans, okay, and the set of plans that we have don't say all of that stuff, okay? That stuff is done by an interior design coordinator that works with our client to make all of these selections so that these things look the way they do. What's important, I think, if we're talking about a really, really high level of customer service, is that as builders, we're reaching out to these integrators early so that we're not chasing the process, so that just like when the tile guy showed up to this project, we had the tile selected, the drawings done, so that they knew the direction of the tile and how it was oriented and how we were going to carry this out. And things like this where you see all these beams and the porches, these are things that are designed and planned out ahead of time. And it's been my experience, maybe yours too, I'm sure yours, where the integrators are kind of like, okay, well, here we are. What are we going to do? And we can't give that level of service to that high-end client if we are not out in front of it and getting their input. I've heard a lot today, well, actually in the last 2 days, about how integrators sometimes don't know what the client wants. Sometimes the integrators are telling the clients what they do. It's our job as custom builders to make that introduction, to be able to sit down like we are here in our conference room or wherever you guys have your meetings, to talk about what those needs are. What does the client want? What do they want to accomplish? And how do these guys solve those needs? So, that's really it in a nutshell.
Okay, any more pictures to show us? Or
Yeah,
just
so
a
I
few?
mean, we go through and some of this stuff is super simple. Some of it gets technical, and there's a lot of little bits and pieces. These are, even this was one of those last minute things where we had leftover brick from the outside and from the skirt around the foundation. Owner asked how we could use that, so we cut it and made it a backsplash, and then wrapped around this arched wall instead of doing trim. But again, it's really being in tune with your client, knowing what they want, and collectively, as a group, as a team, being able to carry out those things, just like you would with your designer, your interior designer, or any of the trades, whether it's it's the framer, the electrician. When you walk through with the electrician, we're walking through and we're deciding, we're confirming where things are going to be switched, and we're confirming the locations of those lights. These guys should be in that same, they should be the next guys up in that meeting. Okay, now that we're done with the electricians, now we're going to walk through. Let's identify where's the equipment going to sit, and or confirm that yes, the equipment is sitting here, and this is how it's going to work, and this is where you're going to pick this sound up, and this is what is going to control this lighting. That's the stuff we need to do, and it's not something you want to do walking into the house with all the contractors to develop and to identify. You're walking through at that point just to confirm what you're going to do. Because we all know that on paper it's one thing, in real life sometimes it's a little bit different. So it's always good to get that kind of that walk through, that check to make sure that everything is still the way you want it to be. But the plan has to be laid out ahead of time.
Yeah, that's been a big theme, as bringing the integrator in early, if not at the planning stages, and to expose clients to what's available to them so that you can implement the right types of products at that time, whether they didn't know they wanted a screen shade or whatever it may be. Or sometimes people think blackout shades are just a shade, but there's things that and other components on the channel side that they may not know, didn't want to have. So the communication up front is vital. So we're going to, thank you, Jim. We're going to utilize you as we have our discussions, as the experiences you've had with your client, things that you see have been an improvement, or you could see as things that could be added to improve this experience. But I'm excited to have Ted here because cybersecurity is so important in our clients, especially those high-end clients, their CEOs. They don't want any of their information compromised. And it really is the expectation. It shouldn't just be, oh, would you like to have it? How are we implementing it? How are we getting it completely throughout the home and securing our clients with the best safety measures with cybersecurity? So I want you to explain a little more, and also kind of how your relationship works with the integrator, how you train them, and how, because at the end of the day, they represent you when servicing the client.
Yeah, sure. So cybersecurity is a new market for the integrator. It's been mainstream in the corporate world and the banking world and for quite a while. But now as homes become connected homes and there's more and more network devices in a home, which is pretty much everything now, the washer, dryer, the refrigerator, the stove, everything is a network connected device in the house. That makes it great for the high luxury clients because they love having everything to be able to see on their cell phones or their iPads or when they're away to check on what's going on in their houses. But it adds a level of security risk, especially from a cyber aspect, for your personal assets, for ransomware, all the things that people never think about unless you're in a corporate world. So what I bring is I work with the integrators to add cybersecurity as part of their maintenance package. What clients want when they finish a house is they want everything to work smooth, and they want to be able, if something doesn't work, to call a single person. They don't want to call 10 or 9 or 10 people. I know Paul's going to talk about this, and you're going to talk about this, creating that maintenance plan and setting expectations and meeting those expectations for the client. And cyber needs to be a part of that. Palo Alto did a survey in 2023 and found out that 60% of connected devices in a home have cybersecurity vulnerabilities. Their cyber attacks last year went up 22% from the year before. It's not going away. It's going to increase, especially on the high-end luxury client. So you need to be thinking when you're talking to integrator about integrating cybersecurity into your maintenance plan with all the other technology you have to protect that high-worth client. They have assets. You don't want them to have their identity stolen. You don't want bank accounts stolen, credit cards. The biggest one now is cyber people attack the high-worth client and hold the home ransom. Mm-hmm. You can't turn your lights on and off. You can't control your television. I mean, it becomes a major issue nowadays, and people aren't thinking about it. So we work with the integrator to train them how to talk to their clients, because the clients don't understand, the integrator doesn't understand, but it's a real world issue. And as time goes on, it's going to become more and more an issue. And it's not something you do once and walk away. The cyber people are constantly looking for vulnerabilities, and that landscape changes on a daily and weekly basis. So it's not something you just install and hope it works. It's got to be something that's maintained and updated on a daily or weekly basis. It used to be a good firewall gave you lots of protection. You need to start with a really good firewall, but that's only the beginning. Mm-hmm. There's so much more now, and the technology is increasing both on the hacker side as well as on the support side. So it's something everybody needs to be aware of and be part of the maintenance agreements.
Absolutely. I mean, 5 years ago during COVID, people were wanting more like bandwidth and connectivity because the kids were home and everyone's using things, and that became a focus and expanding that in the home. And I think this is the next tier of the conversation, because I think sometimes it's a miss when sitting with the client and what they're they may think things are secure, but they're not, and how important that role is. So, because I would say, when the Wi-Fi doesn't work, it's like when people are like, it's like the hierarchy of needs. There's food and water and Wi-Fi now, right? Like that's how people survive. So,
that's very true.
Yeah.
Maybe air conditioning.
Yeah.
But
once that connectivity is gone, the appreciation of everything in it, you just have to sell it. They'll hold your house hostage. People will be like, where do I sign? I want it, right?
Yeah.
But nowadays, if the Wi-Fi doesn't work, your AC may not work.
Yeah. Right.
You got a double doozy there,
That's right.
Yeah.
So we're going to have Kevin contribute here and talk a little bit about Bravas, but also what you provide on the service side.
Yeah, at Bravas, we are, as I mentioned a second ago, we're the largest national integrator for kind of the luxury channel, servicing ultra high net worth clients through kind of the luxury spectrum. And we span across the country. We actually have 13 physical locations across the country. Actually, technically 15, because we've started up a couple new locations as we go. We have over 320 employees now, and we service about 3,500 projects a year. And so when we think about service and support and handling clients, it is front and center. It is at the foundation of who we are as Bravas. We think not only about the service and support of who the client is, but also of what the home deserves and how that happens, because a number of our clients are purchasing existing homes, or clients we're acquiring by clients who've sold homes. And so there's this natural attrition and kind of new clients that are coming in off of that. And I think when Jim kind of started the conversation earlier, he talked about communication. Terry, you kind of touched on this as well. I think that service starts at the very beginning. It is a foundational principle on which construction kind of begins. We know that we are at least in my world, we're dealing with the technology aspects that are happening inside these homes, and we've got to figure out what the right method for communication is and with the clients. And so sometimes that's through project managers, sometimes that's through their design, builders, designers, architects, whoever's kind of in that realm. Sometimes it's directly with the client, and it changes all the time. So figuring out what that method is, and then also understanding what the scope of this project is, really being able to firm up what the client needs are, not overselling them for what they need to have, being very deliberate and intentional on finding systems that are aligned with their needs and their budget, and that deliver on the expectations of performance that they have, and making sure that we've built that foundation in place and moving forward with it. You can see kind of where we're located here and where we kind of do different work. As I mentioned a second ago, our philosophy is all about foundation, right? It's one of the core principles of Bravas. We do believe in building the foundation, not just from a technology standpoint in the home and what we're using. We also believe in the foundation of the home for the home. We want a lot of these homes that we're building, these aren't homes that people are building for the next 5, 7, 10 years. These might be legacy homes where they're building this and they're looking at this as the next 50 to 70 years with different generations of their families that move through here. And so how are we setting up these homes? How are we putting these together? And how are we supporting the infrastructure and back end on what goes together with that? Cybersecurity being a critical component of what that looks like, and making sure that we go that way. By having those in place, that really allows us to then step up what we do from a service standpoint. Not only are we going to be able to be responsive and timely when a client needs something, but more importantly, we can be proactive on that. We can be in front of it. We can be getting information from the system that says, hey, we have internet outages over here, or we've got power or voltage irregularities that are causing technology problems that are happening. And so how can we be in front of that and making sure that the client knows that? Some of our clients have 5, 6, 7 homes across the country. And so being able to have insight into what's happening when they're not there and being able to get to those job sites in remote locations before they're ever inconvenienced by showing up at a house and not having it work the way they expected it to is really critical to our success as a company. And I think ultimately our industry, being in front of that and how that works. And it's no different whether they're building a home somewhere in a remote location in Montana or in the backyard of Orlando. They both have the same expectations on a performance on how that comes through. So we have dedicated service and support teams. We have remote support that comes out of it. We have service packages that are aligned to meet the needs of what our clients expect. And different clients have different expectations. Some are budget conscious and want you available when they need you. Others want you to be proactive and be in front of it and knowing what's going on. Some of them want us to be at their house when they're having parties and sit in the back room all night, making sure things run perfectly smooth for them. And it's completely tailored to the needs of who the client is and making sure that we're in front of that for them. And those vary at levels depending on who the client is and what their needs are and kind of how that comes out. But I think that part of what's happened with technology is that this has become easier to support now. If we're picking the right infrastructure, the right parts, we've stabilized network, we've stabilized power, we've stabilized cooling for these things. We build off of those foundations and really create reliable, intuitive, smart things, and then cover that with service that goes to it. As Bravas as a company, we have a standard 2-year warranty from the day our clients move into their homes. And it starts at that day. No matter what, if it's a 2 or 3 year build and we are putting in parts and product long before that, it doesn't start until that day because that's the day of which they're interacting with that home. And so we know that it starts at that point, and it actually escalates up higher depending on what service plans they're choosing as they move into it. So,
that's excellent.
yeah.
And so when we were speaking and Ted was explaining the cybersecurity, is that built in already, or do you offer that as a tier of
it's part of our tier. I mentioned like a second ago, there's kind of like on the bottom here, we have kind of like standard, enhanced, concierge. We even have like one that we don't list, which is like really like kind of like a custom one that we put together based off what the client's needs are. Once we get to our enhanced and concierge, cybersecurity is actually an add-on for what we do with that. And so you're right. The reality is that a lot of our corporate CEOs and executives that we're dealing with, they have very specific needs and they have very specific experience with dealing with those. We even have a firm that we've used in the past when people have ransom attacks on things where they're brought in to help kind of negotiate those settlements out and to go through that kind of stuff, because there's a whole nother level that comes out of that frankly I wasn't even privy to and wasn't aware of until it kind of became more front and center. Yep.
So if your client doesn't purchase one of the, plans, can they just pay for their cybersecurity monthly, or is that like depending on?
Yeah, so think of it a lot like we pay for a security system monitoring, right? We may, if a client has surveillance camera and really wants to have somebody who has a little oversight on that, they may pay a service to have their surveillance cameras monitored so that someone's looking into those when they see certain, things that are happening on that, maybe an irregularity that happens on a camera. It might push a notification to a monitoring company to view that. Similarly, that's kind of an add-on as well as our cybersecurity kind of aspect to that as well.
I love the 2-year warranty. That's great.
Yeah.
Another question is, so when you meet with the client when everything's installed and you're training them, what are the touch points do you have? Do you do it the first time they're moving in, 2 weeks later to make sure they feel comfortable, 90-day, year? Like, how do you just make sure your client's happy and be proactive?
Yeah, that's a great question. So part of a business, and I'm sure, Paul, you've got something similar to this as well. We have to have standards and structure that go through. And it starts at the beginning. If we can clearly define what we're doing, design this along the way so that things aren't afterthoughts going through it, we make sure that we're kind of following this process through. We even have what we call a 90-day review process where we get back together with the team and go, hey, it's been a year or 2 years since we've decided on what we were doing. Let's just go back through this, get some clarity back on what we were doing. Is there any technology evolution that's happened? And we kind of circle back and make sure that we've got kind of our firm standard on that. I've always talked about, I used to run a lot of marathons. As you see, I don't do that anymore. But at one point, I always talked about, are we running a marathon or are we running a 100-meter dash? Are we going to find the same finish line here? And it's great to reestablish what that looks like for the client, for us, and for the other contractors that are involved in this, so that we are all getting to the same finish line and everyone's happy with that. And so once we've kind of done that, we get things installed. We have a transition from what we call our finish install team into our service and support team as it comes out of it. And that is a very specific kind of training that comes out of it. We actually have employees at our locations that are designated trainers, and their job is to walk a client through at their pace, which is wildly different, to make sure that they are absorbing how the systems work and that they have an understanding of what it looks like. And then being able to give them the resources on whether that's a person they can contact for questions, whether that's a resource on our website that they can reference, YouTube videos, printed materials for people. Everyone's different. And so we make sure that we have all those tools available to them so that they can then understand how that system works and functions. We've QC'd the whole thing, done our checklist to make sure that we finish the project, and then we roll into service and support and make a handoff to our team that supports them moving forward out of that.
Great. Thank you. I'm sure we're going to get back to some more questions, but I want to hear from you and a little bit about ETC.
Yeah, everything he said. No, I think what's interesting is, I sit here and I listen to what the Bravas conversation, and they've really brought a level of professionalism to the industry. I think that's one of the things that I challenge the builders here to realize, that the industry for the integrators has two levels really that we don't talk about. You have the guys that are, very small, they work out of their home, they don't have a professional organization, and then you have companies like Bravas who are bringing it on a national level. I feel like we're a large player. We have 60 employees down in Palm Beach, and we run the business as a business, and we want to partner with the builders early on to make their lives easier. At the end of the day, that's really about being a subcontractor and working with our builders. And when you talk, Jim, about bringing us in early, I want to open up a branch in Virginia so that I can work with you, because that's fantastic. You have the ability to be able to actually have that conversation early on about how do you go about and hide the automation? How do you make it not be intrusive? How do you make it be intuitive to the client? So we're a very design-focused company. We have multiple engineers, designers that are on staff that spend the time actually developing these solutions for the clients based on a lifestyle conversation. And I heard a lot about that, in our meetings here. So we want to talk with the client about what it is they're going to use technology for. I mean, the difference between the company that we were 10, 15 years ago, we were all about, well, this is whiz bang. Let me do as much as I can. Let me over-engineer your solution. And now we're about, how do we make it as simple as possible? And a perfect example is just even a lighting system. I don't know how many homes I've gone into that have 6 buttons of lighting, and the only one that's worn out is the very top button because that's all they use. And so we came up with a simple lighting standard that we use across the board. I would go into homes that we had finished up when I first bought the business, and there was little pieces of paper taped underneath the light switches to, said, oh, this top light switch does this because we hadn't engraved them yet. And so, what I tried to do is change that around and go, look, I know my wife comes home, she wants on and off, and then I added dim, just in case, we want to do something that's a little different. And so we kind of standardized that across our whole footprint. And so now anytime that we install a lighting system, they're pre-engraved. They've got those 3 simple things. Anybody can walk in and use it. And then if you have a client that's, much more tech forward, then we create the customization of it. We can create a 6-digit, but, that does everything, like, party time, sleep time, whatever the case may be. And we also drive customers to the individual apps for the products that we're putting in, because now everybody's comfortable using an app. I saw something that said there's 50,000 apps or whatever it was in one of the meetings. And you go, most people are comfortable working within an app. So our job isn't to try to make it do everything you can on a light switch. It's send them to the app to manage, the details. And so when you go into a room, it turns on every light in the room, it dims every light in the room, or it turns them off. And if you want to control it separately, you go to your app. And that's the conversation. Right. Simple. Let's listen to what our clients are asking for. The automation piece of it is another piece I think we're not doing enough of as an industry. And I think, it's that using the geofencing on your phone. I mean, somebody comes home and a certain amount of transactions happen. I was just at the alarm.com meeting, and they go, you punch in a code, and then the lights will turn on based on whose code they punched in. We shouldn't have to have a punch anything at all, right? We have the ability now to be able to see who's walking in based on a phone or a wearable. Like, I think that's where the technology business needs to continue to evolve in, meeting the client at where the client wants to be met, not where we tell them that they have to interact with us. Yep. As I said, design-centric, really, I mean, if we have a partner that allows us into this conversation early on, we can talk with the designer about, this is the best way to be able to bring a television into this environment. Because the only place to put it is going to be directly in front of the windows that overlook the ocean. Well, let me bring it from the ceiling. Let me bring it from underneath the bed. Like, there's so many choices that we can do now with technology getting so much easier and economical, that I think it's our job to educate and make sure that we're a part of that conversation early on. And really, again, the client focus. I mean, the 2 pictures that I have down at the bottom, that's actually our conference room. We took our conference room and turned it into a light showroom so that we can show off our entire Ketra system that we've installed there and show a client what they can do with RGBW, with human-centric lighting. The shades come down, it totally darkens the room. But it's a dual use purpose. It almost says to the client, look, you didn't even know this was here, right? You didn't know that we had all this whiz-bangery going on behind you, and now you see it all in practice. And I think that's where we have to meet the client more often. And so after we've had that relationship with the builder, that handoff that you're talking about, which is really critical, because obviously if we don't hand it off right, then the client doesn't have that feeling of comfort. We created a few different levels of, and again, I'll go through the evolution. So when I first bought the business, I bought it because I thought there were 3,000 clients that they had installed over the 30 years they had been in business. And I thought there's an incredible opportunity there to be able to go back to those clients and speak to them about not only service, but upgrade opportunities. You still have plasma TV. Let me show you what's here. I mean, it's a huge opportunity to have those conversations. So we started with service plans, and service plans kind of denote that you're having a problem and you want to have something that protects you from having problems. And I took a beat from the HVAC industry who goes, we install an air conditioning unit, but you have to buy this maintenance plan because, you got to make sure that we're coming in every 6 months to change out your filters and everything like that. An HVAC system can be very expensive. Our systems run, $200,000, $500,000, $1 million in low voltage. And you go, we're not setting up a relationship with that client that says we have to come in and maintain that for you. Like, it doesn't just happen by itself. Every single time that Apple sends out an iOS upgrade, it's a potential for us to lose connectivity with something or the client to have a problem. And when you start talking to the clients in that terminology that says, look, we are here to be a lifelong maintenance partner with you. And the idea is if we can go out once a month and make sure that we check everything that's going on in your home, and you know what, it takes 6 to 8 hours. And so we're not intrusive on it. And we're managing their network, we're managing their shades, we're managing their lighting, their audio video, their security system, their surveillance. I mean, as a company now, we are involved in every aspect of that home. And as Ted says, we're also getting involved in, smart appliances and, smart kitchens, all these things that are coming. And all that ties back to a network. You have to have those touch points with the client. So, we created these 3 different levels of plan and we started marketing them to our clientele. Now, Palm Beach is very unique in its clientele. It's a very, significant concentration of wealth. And we saw that the clients, the very upper echelon wanted, a very personalized service. And so we created our concierge program initially, which was literally we dedicated 3 of our service technicians to manage 9 clients. And so the cost benefit analysis that I had to go through, we had to charge a significant amount for it. We charged $45,000 a year. And incredibly, we sold out within the first 6 months of it.
That's great.
And then the problem was finding other technicians to come in and manage that. And the value proposition for the client is, we're always there. We actually were doing something this weekend where for Easter, somebody wanted a tech of ours there from 9 until 4. And so, again, it's your concierge program, it's involved. We're charging for that. I mean, it's not a standard package, but we make it available to the client. And you've got to meet them, again, where they want. Again, that client level is much more, exclusive. We also give them a 24-hour guaranteed response, and they can even buy up to a same day. So if you call me at 12 o'clock and you want somebody there by 2, there's a charge for that, even at the concierge level, but within 24 hours, we guarantee we'll be there. If we're not, we issue you a $250 credit on your invoice on any future service calls that you have. So you have to back it up. You have to make sure that you're there. You got to give the client some value for it. And what we've seen is from the 9 that we started with that signed up with us about 4 years ago, 0 have canceled. So we've been able to show that value. We haven't implemented the cybersecurity yet because we're trying to figure out where we want to incorporate that into the mix, but it's absolutely a conversation Ted and I have been having about, is it going to be at our diamond level, at the concierge level, where do we want to put it in? I'd like to put it in at the member level, which is our entry point. So now anybody that has any type of work done with us, we present them a member level service plan or maintenance plan, sorry, see? So trying to get used to it. And that will offer everybody the exact type of kind of entry level. That'll get you 2 times a year, we'll come into the house and we'll do some type of maintenance review of everything that's installed. The diamond plan gives you once a quarter, and the concierge plan, obviously it's once a month. So, it's designed to try to give everybody a little bit of that opportunity. With security, we are including the cybersecurity. That's going to be part of what we call Security Plus. So we do monitoring, that's kind of included in our plans as well. If you want to get the Security Plus option, then we can upsell that. And again, these are things that we've partnered with some of our builders and go, look, you can present that. We can do it as a shared service. You can have some recurring revenue coming from it. I think the integrators that are trying to run this as a long-term business and creating that recurring model will partner with you as a builder to be able to get that advantage of having those conversations early on. So, the only other thing that I put on here because I think it's so important. We've been very lucky. Our employees have voted us the best place to work in South Florida for 3 years in a row.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Super excited about that. Thank you. And it's not done by accident. Like I made that a goal for the company 5 years ago that I wanted to earn that, and I wanted to earn that from them. And we've factored in, including our health benefits. We spend about $1 million a year on these events and support for our employees. And at the end of the day, it differentiates how they act towards the client when we send them out. Right? They come back, they have a sense of pride of working where they are. They want to deliver an experience that's unique and different, and they want to do what our vision is, which is to wow and amaze our clients. And so the things that I enjoy the most are when my techs send me a note and they go, look, I wow and amaze this guy using, our own terminology. And then when a client calls up and says, I was blown away by the professionalism, the way that they treated our home, and the fact that they resolved the problems quickly. So, it takes a lot of energy to build that. I mean, a lot of outings, a lot of parties, a lot of baseball games, and a lot of stuff. But if you build that culture, it delivers tenfold because the clientele starts to see it. Those referrals start coming. I mean, like everybody else knows these basics, but culture in our experience wins the client. So
absolutely, because if you're not taking care of your people the way you want them to take care of the client, there's a disconnect. So that's a one. How many employees do you have?
We have 60.
60?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So anyway, as far as these service plans are going and how the communication goes to the client, are they aware of the service plans as you're first meeting with them and explain to them what the opportunities are to service their home, or is that an after conversation?
No, for us, it's definitely a beginning conversation. We talk about, I love the term of maintenance and being a partner with this. Like ultimately, that's how we think. I've got to change that. I'm probably still in.
Yeah.
So thank you.
By the way, I'm going to a 2-year plan as well. Just to let you know.
That's awesome. Without a doubt, this is a beginning conversation, right? And I think that's part of the value proposition of partnering with great integrators is the fact that you as builders for your clients, you want to find people who are looking at the lifespan of that client's home and being a part of that. And so for us, it's being very clear. There will be things that come up, and we are going to be there for you, right? As your family evolves, we will be there for you. Maybe you have in-laws that are moving in with you because they're getting older and we need to have them in a better spot. Maybe you have more children that you weren't expecting and your family's grown. How do we adapt with that? And then, of course, all the things that come up, right? Whether it's a security issue or a surveillance, getting footage out of it because a neighbor had a car broken into or those kind of things. Those are all things that we make sure we're looking at and we're talking about very early in the process.
And I think it's, as a builder, it's our responsibility to start that conversation really early because we're in contact. We're meeting with these clients long before you are. Yeah. Okay, so all of those service things that you're talking about are things that we as builders have to be talking about at the sales level. Think about how complicated. Every component of that, every element of that home is super complicated. And as a builder, how moronic is it to finish up, hand the keys and say, good luck with that, right? It's silly, right? So our responsibility is to create some maintenance or service to back that up. I know when I release all the bid requests of my trades, because as a design build guide, nothing's the same. So I don't know how much it's going to cost to maintain this system or this or that. So every one of my trades there's a line item in their bid for my roofer will come and do he'll do an inspection of the roof. My siding and cornice guy he'll go around the house and check all the caulking. My tile guy will go in and he'll check the caulking and the grout and it goes down the line. It's the HVAC, the integrator. Everybody has to go in at the plumber has to go in and service the water heater. All of those things have to be done. And having that conversation as you're getting to know the client that you're going to be working for is super important because that plays into what you guys are talking about. I mean, it's got to be across the board. It's not just it's not just the tech. It's not just that automation. It's everything, and that's our responsibility as the builder, and also to have partners like you guys who are like-minded about those systems and about those kind of that approach.
Yeah. The reality is we live in a very service-based industry, right? And I think even about my family, and I don't live in any of these homes that I work on, but I've got a pool guy, I've got the landscape firm, I've got housekeepers, I've got a window guy that comes twice a year, I've got my HVAC contractor that comes. I mean, clearly I have technology stuff and I've got that stuff that's happening on it. And so, our clients are used to that. They know what that's like. They understand the process of that. We're just fitting alongside what they're already expecting to be, to be going through.
I agree 100%. It's a whole other level of expectation, and kind of getting ahead of it is kind of dangling the carrot on cybersecurity, that's going to be a very easy sale. You go back to your clients and boom, right? It's another level. I was just going to ask, do you have a service plan that you do with your clients?
It's not a service plan. Frankly, we do more than we even have to do. We don't do a ton of marketing, so I actually have a part of my chart of accounts where my maintenance and warranty is in my marketing budget.
Yeah.
I just take care of it.
Yeah.
You know, somebody calls, we just go do it. And you know what you can do, the capital that you can build up for a couple of $100s worth of work is mind blowing.
Right.
You know, we had a client once overflowed his tub by accident. He was filling his tub, storms coming up the coast, and calls me in the middle of Sandy. It was. He said, "Jim, I hate to tell you this, but I overflowed my tub and all the water's gone down into the ductwork in my master bath." Okay. Well, you know, storm's over. I'll send Jeff out. Take a look. We went out for my guy's time and the ductwork. It was $375, $400, and I just did it. And he said, "So what do I owe you?" I said, "No, you don't owe me anything." Now, we had built this guy's house 6 years prior to that. That's not a warranty item. That's not something I had to do. But to me, that's low-hanging fruit, right? For under $400, I went and took care of a multi-million-dollar client who's now going to say really nice things about me.
Yeah.
Like that's,
Yeah.
right? Why would you not do that?
100%. I mean, I think there's actually a company that's in our industry that does the same thing, doesn't charge for any service calls, and just makes it part of their kind of their service plan. Yeah. I think there's a place for that. There's absolutely, because you know you create that goodwill, and that's what creates the referrals. That's what creates your buzz and everything else. I mean, the truth is, you're trying to differentiate yourself from the competition, right? And again, I'm trying to differentiate myself from him. He's trying to differentiate. What do we do that makes us stand out, that's a little bit unique? And I think those are the kinds of things, those are the moments that you connect with a client and you now create a relationship. And we were talking about, you know, the service tech who goes out, how they need to be almost a salesperson. They need to be somebody that has the ability to talk to the client, calm them down. You know, they have to have all these personality skills, because not only do they have the technical skills to do it, obviously, but then they have to take that client and, you know, explain why it happened, why didn't it go the way that you expected it to, and oh, by the way, there's these new products that might be interesting for you. You know, I just want to show them to you. You get that one opportunity, because every opportunity to sit with a client is an opportunity to be able to do something good for them, and you know, good for you as well. I mean, at the end of the day, we're trying to make a profit. So,
and one thing we talked about collectively is the reports, or how your customer understands this hard work in the back end and the cybersecurity, and if anything has happened, what do they like to receive? I mean, sometimes they don't want to be, you mentioned, they rather that once a month, a report, they don't want to be called, don't want to be told, but sometimes out of all those efforts, and I think it's fantastic because you're getting the flag before the client even knows something's going wrong, but it's also nice to deliver that message that you're doing your job, and this is how we serviced you this month. Just curious how you do that.
Yeah, I'll start. So technology is so advanced now. There's so much information you get proactively. So we're finding things out before the client ever knows they're happening. And with the maintenance programs, with both these companies, and there's other companies that can support integrators that will take those calls and look at those proactive, 60, 70% of the time, you can fix those things remotely without the client ever knowing there was never an issue. That's a huge thing nowadays that like 5, 10 years ago didn't even exist. Yeah. So now the client loves to see those reports, you know, on a monthly basis. Just like, oh, look, you did these things. It shows value to what they're paying for those maintenance plans. Because if you're doing all this stuff in the background and they don't ever see anything, which is what you want the client to do, they need to see that, oh, you're doing something for me and I didn't even know you were doing it. As well as giving you statistics like your internet's been up 98% of the time and it's been at this rate. You know, they love to see
Yes.
that kind of data, right? Because then they know what they're paying for.
And I think that's an area of opportunity for our industry as integrators, is to get better at packaging that information in something that says, here's your 5 key, metrics for your home.
Right.
This is your home management system, if you will. We talk a lot about home automation. I'm talking more about, we really are trying to manage your home for you.
Yeah.
Whether it be the locks now, everything we're seeing here,
Even
all
air
the technology,
quality.
the air quality,
It's a health report. It's almost like getting a report
That's right.
card or
It's a
the
home
health of your home,
home
right?
health
And like, how is it going? You got this percentage, or it makes you feel good. You're proud of your home and you feel safe, right? And safety is now on cybersecurity. It's not necessarily locking the front door. People are getting in ways that, are beyond capability of even thinking how they do it, but they do it.
So one of the big reports for cybersecurity is when you initially put it in, you do a risk assessment, and it looks at all the connected devices in the house and comes back with a report that says high risk, medium risk, low risk. So you know how to deal with those issues and fix them so that vulnerability gets closed. Sometimes it's just doing a firmware update on a device, and it might not be a device you installed. It might be the pull jandy, and you got to get the pull guy out to do an update. It might be a camera that was 10 years old and the manufacturer doesn't support it anymore, and there's a security risk. So the suggestion is going to be replace the camera with a newer camera. But you need to do that on a quarterly basis because the security risks constantly change, and the only way to know what's going on with the amount of devices in there is to do that risk assessment and create that report.
It might be like a VTech children's toy that just gets signed onto a network, right? That's just incredible how much stuff it creates openings and challenges for us.
Yeah. And what I think is valuable is for the builder to be part of that atmosphere, because I go back to the fact that we were the primary relationship. But the other thing too is that while that is now your client, our relationship with you is deeper, okay? We have an ongoing relationship. You have, multi-tiered relationships where that client is one client for you. And my point is that, for example, we were talking earlier that everybody's different. Some folks they're happy to have a home warranty company be their first call. I want to be the first call. I tell our clients, if something happens, you call, okay? Because while the trades, the integrators, everybody that we work with is very capable and really good, at the end of the day, they are still going to respond differently to me than they are going to respond to the client. Our relationship is just different. So it's really important that we're on the same page with these guys to make sure that we can precipitate that level of service. It's interesting you say the reporting, because I just got an idea listening to you. We build high performance homes, okay? So when you're talking about a risk assessment, we put sensors in the crawl space, attic, and on every floor of our homes. And we monitor the temperature and relative humidity of the house all the time. I've got it on my phone. I can scroll through my apps and I can see what's happening. We had a problem on a house that we had some humidistats throwing the house into negative pressure and creating an issue. I was able to look at that data, give it to the HVAC contractor, and very quickly fix it because we saw what was happening. But I don't share that with the client. It's a great idea for us to be able to put together a report and say, hey, you know what? This much time this month, your home was at the relative humidity that we designed it to be at.
Yes.
I mean, that's a great
Huge.
idea.
I think the reporting is important. In language, it's like, it's not the help desk or the service or there's a problem.
Right.
It's like I keep on saying health report, because it really is the well-being and health of your home. So if they see the health report, they're feeling and breathing good air and drinking clear water, and the humidity levels are right. And there's no mildew and consumption of anything that's going to hurt them in their family.
Protected.
Yeah.
Yep. Right.
Right. And the whole cybersecurity thing.
Right.
Yeah, all the different components of it, right? I mean, if you do
Nothing's
this right,
been compromised in your
your cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think packaging that in terms that clients understand, right? The other side is we can give too much information that become overwhelming, or maybe where you see it and you just kind of ignore it.
It needs to be explained, because it's almost like with those online, you go to the doctor and then you go online. It's like you see like the percentages. I'm like, am I going to die? So it is really about, you almost have to give it, it's like, this is the level in which it's not safe, but you're here, right? And
like the red, green, blue, or like a green, yellow, red kind of assessment, right? Like, hey, you're
A little dashboard.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
I like that.
Well, we have a few more minutes. Really grateful for this. I think the whole service side is very, very important in this industry. Things aren't always going to work all the time. So being preventive and also letting them know and giving them the best advantages of having a well-working home is really through these plans we've been talking about. So in the generosity of you, I think that's a huge point of, as a marketing thing, but also just building trust and referral from that client with that, small change to fix something.
Well, I think it's important that I just never wanted to be in a situation where I'm in a supermarket and I don't want to make eye contact with one of my clients. I mean, there's nothing more uncomfortable than, being in a situation where you go out to dinner somewhere, you sit down with your wife, and your client's right there. I mean, I'd rather thank them for the drink they just bought me.
Right.
Okay. Than to think, there he is.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope he doesn't see me. And it's low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I want to open it up for any questions or anything you want to add to the conversation. Maybe some of you already have a working service plan you want to share. Michael?
Yeah, so the answer to that is at some level not well, okay? And I say that because I'm very loyal to the trades that we work with. I call it a bid request that I send out, but these guys, they're not bidding against anybody else. They know that. We do have more than one trade in several different phases of construction. But generally speaking, they're not bidding against anyone. It's really more of a bandwidth thing. It's more of a kind of a, just a capability situation where if we have X number of projects under construction, our framer can only handle so many. The integrator can only handle so many. Our integrator is a small guy, so he doesn't have a big operation. So to get to your question, the loyalty part plays into that collaborative nature where they're willing to give their time to develop because they know they're going to get the job if we get the job. Similarly, we also, I do a vendor breakfast twice a year. I do it in January, I do it in July. And we give a little State of the Union. This is what's going to happen in the next 6 months. And then we open it up and say, so what do you need? What do you need from us? What do we need to do better? And we put ourselves out there and we take comments, but then we talk to them about what they need to do better for us. And my comment in January was, okay, guys, we all know that you don't bid against anybody, but you're getting a little fat and happy. So we gotta cut that crap out.
Right.
Because sooner or later, they're gonna tap out and we're all gonna be sitting home. So you've got to be willing to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Like that loyalty is something that can't be, they have to know that they can't take advantage of that.
Yeah, and if everybody's pushing 5 or 10%, then nobody gets the job in that relationship, right? And so you've really got to be bought in on the relationship side. I as an integrator, we're pretty. I mean, we sell at prices we're at MSRP. We have time that it takes to do the job. We look at the complexity of the job, and we have factors that kind of factor in, the time, like how long this is going to take, how much management it's going to take, the different pieces that go through this. And I would encourage integrators, if you're out there, like, don't whittle yourself down. Like stop driving to the bottom and start looking at value adds, things that you actually supply that make it worth doing business with you. Where you become a valued and trusted partner in the overall. What do you do to add value to the electrician so that he can do his job more effectively and better? How do you make the framer's job faster and better with less waste? How can you do things with the pool contractor to make sure that he's got the right sleeves in place and that you're not holding him up if you happen to get stuff out to landscape? Like, how do you run your business that makes it to where all the other trades want to work with you? And it will become less about money, and it will become more about the fact that you're a part of the team and that they want you to be there. And I think that you'll find more success when you get out of it that way.
Recently, I always ask when new projects come, I'm eager to ask who's the integrator because of my past experience. And I have found it interesting when a lot of times while the management team is choosing their own or the client is bringing someone in, it's like the good news and the bad news, right? So I do think it would be important for the builder to meet with the integrator of choice if you have no control over that, but to make sure that everyone's aligned, the relationship is going as anticipated. Because sometimes when they're brought in, it's from it may not be the right fit for this particular job. I even learned a lot, and I'm here asking questions, but I really appreciate, I think, the service side. I stayed at Four Seasons this weekend, and they had construction going on, and it was annoying, right? You heard the sound. But when I say the people made up for hearing any noise every morning, the service was so incredible. Like, we should all go and get trained by them. I don't know who's doing it, but they're doing an incredible job. It really is that relationship. It's about, putting yourself out there, being attentive, caring, and that their needs are being met, that you really care, not ingenuous, phone call, but like, are you guys doing okay? I really want to make sure things are good. So I've learned a lot. Cybersecurity, I hope everyone grabs your card. I mean, this is going to be mandated, all right? So I want to thank you all for being a part of this. Thank you for sitting in, and enjoy your afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.